From Mediaite. Ish Show, Marjorie Taylor Greene trashes drama over Trump's big, beautiful bill, says she can't imagine it will pass the House. So big news that Trump's agenda has succeeded in the House only because of J.D. Vance's tiebreaker. Now we're hearing from Marjorie Taylor Greene, as well as the obvious components here. It's not going to make it to the House. So you were mentioning before the show, Chip Roy says no.
Yeah.
Thomas Massey's an obvious no. He's been saying no nonstop. So they're already at a tied vote. So what happens then?
Marjorie won't be the vote that kills the bill.
But there's probably...
She's too pro-Trump. She won't do it.
But all you need is one more defector, and it's not going to.
But who would that be?
So I'm reading.
Chip Roy and Massey are both the biggest budget hawks.
Ralph Northam from South Carolina told reporters he currently opposes advancing the bill out of Rules Committee after the Senate's changes. I don't know if they're going to massage him too. They could lose up to 3.
Yeah, I mean they'll massage, they'll give kickbacks, and there will
Ralph
probably.
Northam?
Norman.
I was like...
Yeah, no, Norman. And there will probably be amendments in the House version as well. I mean, just a couple other things in the Senate version that are kind of disturbing. The provision that prevents Medicaid funding for Planned Parenthood only lasts for 1 year. And also the no tax on tips and no tax on overtime only lasts for 3 years.
Yep.
So the way that the OMB director Russ Vogt is able to say that the bill is deficit neutral is because the CBO scores over a period of 10 years. They did this exact same accounting trick with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which is where they made the corporate tax cuts permanent and they made the middle class tax cuts temporary because they knew that would be politically easier to pass an extension on. But when they passed it the first time, making that part temporary made the 10-year scoring window look deficit neutral. So they're doing the same thing with this 3-year provision on no tax on tips and no tax on overtime, because if you scored the bill over those first 3 years, it would increase the deficit significantly. But because it's scored over 10, assuming those things expire, which they won't, Congress will obviously vote to extend them. It is, of course, a huge budget buster. So that's like the huge rub here that I think the Trump administration is not being super honest about. And they keep claiming that they are doing no tax on Social Security, which isn't true. It's only under certain conditions, which they're like, oh, well, it's 88% of seniors covered under Social Security. But what about people who take their Social Security before the age of 65? Like, what about a widow who has to take it because she's only getting her late husband's pension and she's only 62, right? Like, they're not getting tax relief under this.
I honestly think at the end of the day, the reason why Trump is so adamant about the bill is because if the tax cuts don't stay, that's going to have a negative effect on the economy. And I think he knows that the worst thing for his entire presidency is a bad economy. That's why he's going so ham at the Powell and giving him such a hard time about not cutting interest rates. So I don't know that this is actually really all that much deeper than that.
I think a lot of posturing has to be done, but if you vote against the big, beautiful bill, you're probably going to have to retire or be primaried by a candidate that Trump is backing.
Hold on. Well, what happens if they only get 218 votes? They need a majority. Is 218 enough to pass it?
As I understand, they could lose 3 votes and still pass it.
No, that would put them at 217.
Let me look up the...
So I think at 218, they still pass it. If they lose 3 votes, it fails.
I think that's right. I think they can only afford to lose 2.
Yep.
I think the people that are most likely to encounter primaries are the people that didn't want to help push through the NFA stuff. The gun lobby, while it's not very big, it's extremely active. Like
and well funded.
Yeah, well funded. And people that are like pro 2A people, they really, really get out and vote. They're one of the most reliable voting blocks. And there's a lot of people that are talking on the internet now. They're like, "Oh, I'm not going to go. We hope for primaries. I won't be there in the midterms, etc." This is a big deal to a very small group of people, but that small group of people can really make a difference because they are so committed and they always vote.
This is true.
So I don't see
the big beautiful bill's going to pass.
No. We'll see.
I think it'll ultimately pass. It obviously won't be by the July 4th deadline. It'll probably be mid to early August before the recess. And they'll threaten to hold them over recess. They'll say, well, if you don't get this passed, you're going to have to stay. And I mean, ultimately, they probably wouldn't make them stay over recess because then everyone hates Mike Johnson. But I think that's probably the timeline that we're looking at.
Thomas Massey made a great point. He said that Mike Johnson's brought, like 100 and something Democrat bills to the floor while dilly-dallying on the Trump agenda and what the Republican voter base wants, what the Trump base wants. So why is everybody mad at him? They should be mad at Speaker Johnson. Johnson's doing a miserable job.
I don't know.
Because the deep state.
I hate to say it, but Kevin McCarthy warned us.
Yeah, but he was doing the same thing.
I know.
Is,
it's like the pot calling the kettle black, but in this one instance, he was correct.
It's true, but that's because of how tight the margins are.
Right.
It's like if you had 300 Republicans, you'd just be like, whatever, we're going to do whatever we want.
And you can't make the perfect the enemy of the good. That's like rule number 1 in politics.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
I really think that we shouldn't have to be. The Trump agenda shouldn't hinge on these couple of House members, specifically Thomas Massey, thinking that, blocking the agenda from passing. So I wanted to actually regurgitate this Truth Social from Donald Trump talking about Thomas Massey, because I do think we need to be clear-eyed about these libertarians. He says Thomas Massey of Kentucky is not MAGA, even though he likes to say he is. Actually, MAGA doesn't want him, doesn't know him, and doesn't respect him. He's a negative force who almost always votes no matter how good something may be. He's a simple-minded grandstander who thinks it's good politics for Iran to have the highest level nuclear weapon, while at the same time yelling death to America. So I think, again, these Republicans need to fall in line, and ultimately I think they will, and the Trump agenda will pass. And I think this will be very good for the Trump country that this one big, beautiful bill does get passed. I think we also it's worth mentioning how we got here and why Trump needed to pass it as one big, beautiful bill. It's because the House votes were so slim, because the majority in the House is so slim. They wouldn't be able to pass bills individually.
I get it, and I want the bill to pass, but I think Mike Johnson's the problem, not Thomas Massey. I think the problem is weak-willed, spineless Republicans and evil, smarmy Democrats, not Thomas Massey.
Well, it's true, because why are we having to do Doge cuts through the rescission process, which doesn't even affect future spending? That's pulling back money that's already been appropriated by Congress.
Because Congress is broken.
Yeah.
I don't see how...
and why aren't they codifying all of these executive orders that Trump signed?
Because Mike Johnson.
Right. Like Mike Johnson should be bringing one to the floor every single effing day.
I'm just going to go ahead and assume that when you go to Congress, Mike Johnson is standing at the table banging the gavel, and behind him is a gigantic lizard monster with an alien laser weapon pointed at his back or something.
I have no idea why nothing ever gets done, but it's just, standard operating procedure.
I think Speaker Johnson has
we are
a good job
in a chicken coop.
Conditions that he's put in. I think he has a 2-seat majority. How much wiggle room does he really have? He's put in a tough position trying to pass the agenda.
It's all fake. It's all fake. The Senate parliamentarian being like, "Oopsie, I guess you can't have the bills you want."
Gosh, John Thune should have fired her.
But it's fake. It's fake. The fact that things like this exist. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, we are all no different than chickens in a coop, walking around, pecking the ground, going about our daily business, thinking we have lives and rights, and they have set up the system in such a way that even when you win the election, a parliamentarian goes, whoopsie, and starts stripping out the things from the bill that you actually want.
It's the deep state, just Senate version.
Right, exactly. On purpose. They said, let's create
They're also recommendations.
backups.
They don't have to listen to her.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the part that's so frustrating is they can overrule her, they can just ignore her, and they chose not to. That's exactly why the 2A lobby is so upset, is because they know that this is probably the only chance that there's going to be, especially with the change in the actual tax. There's probably not going to be a chance to do anything about the NFA ever. You're probably not going to get anything in front of the Supreme Court and about this post the tax, and it's a once in 100 years chance, and they just said no, we're not going to do it.
Man, I really do think this is a one in a lifetime chance to pass this bill to help put forth the Trump agenda. I'm kind of thinking what a huge disaster it would be for this bill not to pass, and really the Trump agenda to not manifest.
It'll be a disaster for the economy. It'll be a disaster for the economy, and it'll be a bad thing for the immigration stuff, and for ICE, and for getting immigrants out of the country. But
Democrats would be elated if this didn't pass, huh?
Well, I mean,
yes, they would.
I
definitely,
maybe, but
no question.
It's not. It wouldn't be good for the country, and so they would hang it on Trump and be like, "Oh, well, it's Trump's fault." But they're all going to vote against it.
They're going to attack him either way. But
it doesn't matter.
I think I have no concern that it's not going to pass. Massey told me last week, he used this analogy. He was like, look, Congress is 3/4 pregnant. They're going to have the baby. Like, it's this far in the process. They're going to get it done. Somebody's going to compromise on principle or whatever you want to call it and vote for this.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.